Welcome, creatives, community, and kind folks, to this Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition Tuesday. I appreciate you and everyone else for taking part in the show. We are going to take a look at yet another uh, part of the Level Up A5E system, and we're going to take a closer look. Specific look at the combat maneuver system. Um, if you um, take a look at the playlist for Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition, you'll notice that a one of the mechanisms that really separates it from a lot of the Fifth Edition Dungeons and Dragons clones is Level Up A5E's combat maneuver system, which in many ways is a parity to spell casting, making martial characters have some ability to operate in the current game system, giving them lots of more options. As a matter of fact, I think at current count there's 176 different combat maneuvers, and there are here in the chat I put a link in. I'll also put it down in the doobly doo when this is done. There are cards that you can get so that the players and narrator can kind of keep track of which maneuvers each individual has, or NPCs, and have those in front of you, much like spell cards. But for here, we're going to go into the different combat maneuvers, the different traditions, and then go into more detail as to what the traditions hold and such. So right here, we're on page. What page are we on? Uh, 458 and 457, 6 and 7. And under the combat maneuvers, we do have the overview here with the various traditions, prerequisites, and things of that nature. So of course, in Dungeons and Dragons, the fighter has access to all of the combat maneuvers. The other martial classes are limited in terms of which traditions they have access to, which also limits the maneuvers that they can pick under each of those traditions. Traditions in combat maneuvers are much like uh, spell schools, and the titles of the current combat, excuse me, current combat traditions are Adamant Mountain, Biting Zephyr, Mirror's Glint, Mist and Shade, Rapid Current, Razor's Edge, Sanguine Knot, a Spirited Steed, Tempered Iron, Tooth and Claw, and Unending Wheel. And classically, we kind of think of like combat maneuvers and combat traditions in our own world related to particular cultures, martial arts, martial arts being specifically how different cultures express themselves in combat. But the design crew for A5E wanted to get away from that. So you won't see something like Shaolin martial arts. You won't see karate. You won't see Caleri Payet or capoeira or something of that nature. Um, it's it you can flavor it the way you want, but each tradition is focused around a type of combat to solve, or a type of solution in solving a method of combat, and it is in here. Uh, there are some um, generalized combat maneuvers that are available to every player character, more than just the I hit it with my hands or a weapon, and more than just the push or shove mechanic. There's more than that, grappling and things of that nature. Also, much like spell casting, the maneuver DC, there is a maneuver modifier. Um, eh, Under every monster in a monstrous menagerie, there is the maneuver um, modifier for that creature. And so that if you want to use these combat maneuvers against everything from an ooze to a dragon to undead, etc., giants, there's a DC modifier for that. But anyway, the maneuver modifier, of course, is DC. DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dex modifier. That can, of course, be modified by the specific maneuver you take. But just like spell casting, it's the same thing. Um, Again, under prerequisites here, you may have a certain character class that limits which tradition you can pick, and there is also something else known as stances, and stances are uh, like a method of fighting that continues to modify the way you engage in combat. And in once you expend your exertion to activate that stance, you are in that stance for the detailed amount of time. And that can modify maybe your movement, your combat capabilities, offensively, defensively, and other things. And lastly, we have an exertion pool. Your exertion pool is equal to twice your proficiency bonus, and you expend points out of your exertion pool to use your combat maneuvers. So if you run out of exertion, you cannot use your combat maneuvers. Let's see what you guys have. Look at the chat here. Hey, Mike, what's going on there? The End King, hey. There should be Wizard Fist for casters who specialize in punching and slapping with Mage Hand. Yeah, yeah, the Wizard's Fist. Big giant. Do you really need that? Or can you just apply powder to the palm and just smack somebody in the face when they come around the corner, right? All right, what's that? All right, Morden Kanan. The Wizard's Fist. All right, so let's see. Let's get into let me expand this out just a little bit so it can be seen here, even though I do have the double page set up here. So the basic maneuvers that every character class has access to, every character has access to. We do have basic melee damage, which is 1 plus your strength modifier. It Basic melee damage, 1 plus your strength modifier, can be applied to some of the other basic maneuvers as well. So when you knock someone down in A5E, you actually are able to do basic melee damage, and this can modify some other capabilities, but you can't use your basic, as it states right here. You cannot use a basic maneuver to activate any features that deal additional damage, such as sneak attack or divine smite, unless the feature specifically says otherwise. So it's not a way to. It's not a get around from a rule. So anyway, we have disarm, grab on. Of course, we know how to disarm something. Grabbing on is the idea of especially grabbing onto a creature larger than oneself and being dragged along. The classic jumping on the back of the giant monster, or grabbing onto a wing or a limb or something. There's also grappling and a few more details when it comes to grappling, such as escaping a grapple, moving a grappled creature, or freeing a grappled creature. Of course, your NPCs, your monsters, can engage in these as you see fit, that are appropriate narratively. Of course, all characters can knock down someone, or overrun or shove them. Knocking down means knocking them down prone. Shoving means pushing them 5 feet in a particular direction that you would choose. There we go. Wow. Okay. Overrun is basically moving through a space, pushing them out the way, forcing your way through a location. On the shove maneuver, one of the details here says the target, of course, must be within your reach and be no more than one size category larger than you. Uh, the target makes a strength saving throw against your maneuver DC. On a failure, you deal basic melee damage and push the creature a number of feet away from you equal to 5 plus 5 feet for every 5 points it failed its saving throw by. So it's, instead of just a pushing them 5 feet, you get to do your basic melee damage. So let's say your strength mod's +3, you get to do 4 points of damage to them, move them 5 feet, and then you can move them an additional 5 feet for every 5 points it failed its saving throw. You can move the creature in any direction away from you, to the side, forward, or diagonally away. A creature that's shoved off a precipice is propelled off of whatever it is standing on. It does not receive any saving throw or ability check to grab onto something to avoid falling down below. Essentially, the reason why that's put in there is because they've already failed their saving throw. This adds an A, it would add an extra die mechanic, and B, giving them a second chance to resist this ability. I mean, resist this maneuver. So then we have the list of all alphabetically of all the combat maneuvers, like a spell list of sorts. All the combat maneuvers are non are not um, they are not arcane. So the combat maneuvers, and there may be some combat maneuvers that counter other combat maneuvers. You still have access to them, even if you are in like I don't know anti magic shell or something like that. you know, yeah, Biggie's mage slap or mega slap. Wayne, what's up, man? What's going on there? Hey guys. Okay, so I'm gonna reduce this to a single page. If you just bear with me here, and and let's get this nice and large here. So our first combat maneuver here is Adamant Mountain, and under the heading of all of the traditions, you will see a title, and then you'll see three words listed below it, and it's an extremely tight summary of what that maneuver is. So, Adamant Mountain maneuvers deal with hardiness, might, and power. In a way, Adamant Mountain is like using combat, knowing you're going to get hurt in combat. So, yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Adamant mountain maneuvers engage in combat. Excuse me, engaging in combat means enduring some amount of suffering, and those who make use of adamant mountain maneuvers are well prepared to weather their opponent's blows, relying not just on their might, but the careful and expert application of force in all aspects of battle. Uh, and adamant mountain maneuvers like, if you're hit, you can strike back. It deals with grappling and other things. And right here, you can see the title of one of the maneuvers, such as Catch Your Breath. It costs 2 points of exertion, and there's a first degree Adamant Mountain bonus action. So, first degree, like a spell level, like uh, a level one spell, you will see these as listed in degrees from 1 through 5. And whether it's a bonus action, a reaction, that kind of thing, or even a stance. And so, for example, here in Catch Your Breath, you have a limited well of stamina that you can draw on to protect yourself from harm. You regain hit points equal to 1d6 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier, minimum of 0. And that's it. And you will notice there's 176 maneuvers, so it's difficult to summarize them down, but a lot of what was asked for from changes to fifth edition into advanced fifth edition here in Level Up was that there were a number of passive abilities that martial characters had, and players wanted something to be a little bit more dynamic, wanted to be more proactive, and in picking and choosing what they do and when they do it and how it happens, rather than having simple base passive abilities. Passive abilities meaning like you have the ability, you don't make die rolls, and it just exists. Much like um like having the archer capability as a fighter. You just gain like +2 to your die roll, and that's a very passive ability. So some of the passive abilities have been made active and then split apart a bit into its component parts. So, for example, in fifth edition, there's Action Surge for fighters that gives them another action. Instead, it was broken apart. So, Action Surge exists in the maneuvers, of course, not under that name, but only allows them to do maybe a portion of it, or has some other effect, or maybe even it can apply to allies and things like that. So, um, many of the maneuvers do have some specificity when you can use them, how you use them, but it's far more proactive. You're thinking about, should I use it now? Should I wait? Do I want to do it when I'm in the same side by side with my ally? Do I want to do this on my own and things like that? So it gives the players a lot more options. Um, and it makes combat more dynamic and gives more. It gives a um, the the mental pressure of choosing when and how to use a maneuver was desired, and some people like that. Others don't like that. Passive abilities, they kind of operate on their own. But I don't know, people wanted it, so that's it. Wayne says, "What book is this, please? Is it sort of 4E-ish Marshall style, or do I have 4E wrong? I never read a 4E book. No, no, no. This is specifically Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition. So this is from N World, and I I didn't help in this design, but I was part of the writing crew hired by N World to work on uh, a fifth edition clone. Now, this existed 2 years prior. This was in development 2 years prior to what Wizards of the Coast started at the beginning of the year in January, where everyone like from Cobalt Press's version, Tales of the Valiant, or what was called Black Flag, to MCDM coming out with their own system, Critical Role in their system, and such. So there are other fifth edition clones, but this actually existed before that, if that makes sense. So this book is called The Adventurer's Guide. It's one of 3 books in the A5E system. So the Adventurer's Guide is like the player's handbook. The Monstrous Menagerie is like a monster manual, and the Trials and Treasures book, which my name is in and I helped design, is like the Dungeon Master's Guide, kind of. And this, we're just taking a look at the martial maneuvers. So, so anyway, under Catch Your Breath, that's basically like, it's like a healing surge, kind of. Uh, in other games like fourth edition, and I don't have a lot of detail about fourth edition, but it's kind of like that. You spend 2 exertion points, boom, you get this back. And if you have enough exertion, you could, since it's a bonus action, you could do it again on your next turn when you have access to a bonus action, so on and so forth. Um, and they are, some of these are gated. Some of these abilities are gated. So, for example, when you have, if you only have access to first degree abilities, and you don't have access to second degree, you cannot pick those, like spell levels. And some of these can be gated. Like if you don't have one ability, you can't pick the ability just above it. So here's an example of a stance, and like if you think of classic martial arts, uh, a stance, whether, and when I say martial arts, I'm talking like a fencer's stance, a stance that someone would have with a battle axe, a stance if you know someone who's practicing capoeira or aikido or something. A stance, it continues on. So this one, heavy stance, is a first degree adamant mountain bonus action. You set yourself firmly in place, determined not to move. You gain an expertise die on athletics checks that use strength. You gain an expertise die on saving throws made to resist combat maneuvers. And you ignore the first 10 feet of difficult terrain when you move on your turn. And this is an example of a maneuver that goes against other maneuvers, right? So you gain an expertise die on saving throws made to resist combat maneuvers, which is kind of cool. Um, Basically, it prevents you from being like moved, and you get to move through spaces, not ignoring difficult terrain, but at least the first 10 feet, so you can get to maybe a specific spot without being hindered, and things of that nature. For example, as a reminder, expertise, if you gain an expertise die, and all characters have access to expertise dice, if you have an expertise die, it's a d4. Any other thing that gives you more expertise on the same action increases the die. It's a chain dice or step dice, so it goes from d4 to d6, d8, up and down. If something takes away expertise, which are not too many things, um, you it goes back down the chain or back down the steps. And so we have the maneuvers: lean into it, reactive knockdown, battering strike, shrug it off, crushing blow, etc. Again, here with crushing blow, it's a third degree ability, costs 2 points, but the prerequisite is extra attack. So you have to be a character class level enough to have an extra attack. Uh, Wording: wield, unbreakable, stand tall, etc., etc. Mm, mm, mm. Then we get into our next one, biting Zephyr and biting Zephyr maneuver. And again, the reason for the flowery language to describe them was the idea to try to separate the maneuver and combat maneuvers and traditions away from its cultural identity so that you, when you're designing your world, can have different things. I'll bring up uh, Mike Gould's world, in which he has like nomadic like orcish individuals, and they may have a specific combat maneuvers that relate to them. Maybe if they're plains runners or something, they have certain they tend to focus on a particular method of combat, like maybe ranged attacks or something, or mounted combat. And so you're not stuck with having to wipe something clean to start something new, if that makes sense. So under biting maneuvers is distance, sharpshooting, and thrown weapons. Yeah, not every battle requires making close contact with the enemy, and there is an art to fighting from a distance, whether that be a few dozen feet or hundreds. Warriors that know biting Zephyr techniques are superlative, ranged combatants, not only for the deadly accuracy of their attacks, but also the myriad tricks they've mastered to routinely make shots that would be impossible. Of course, this is your ranged attacker. Of course, rangers and fighters have access to this, so absolutely, using ranged weapons, daggers, spears, um, bow, crossbows, things like that. Trick shot. What we got? Quick draw, ricochet, trick shot, dive for cover, blind shot. There's a dive for cover, 4 points. The fourth degree biting Zephyr reaction. Under fire, you dive for cover. When you are targeted by a ranged attack after it hits or misses you, you can use your reaction to move up to your speed. If your movement ends adjacent to either a solid barrier as big as you or a creature that's the same size as you or bigger until the beginning of your next turn, you have 3/4 cover against ranged attacks, or a +5 bonus to AC and saving throws, as long as you remain adjacent to the barrier or structure. It's kind of cool. We see that often in slow motion. Diving. Yay! Excuse me. Here's another tradition: mirrors glint. Here we go. Flowing, insightful, reactive. At its heart, combat is a dance between opponents, and practicing the mirror's glint tradition means reading, interpreting, and anticipating one's foe. Using instinct and your insight from battles won and lost, you are excellent at reacting to an enemy in order to gain the upper hand. Also, a lot of these combat traditions uh, may focus on a particular stat. So some may be strength based, others might be wisdom based. So if you understand Dungeons and Dragons, you understand that like if you want to make a fighter that is intelligence based, you can pick one of these traditions that focuses on that and then play it that way. So it's assisted roll, off balance strikes, flowing form, heightened reflexes, take weapon, redirect. Some of the abilities there. Discerning strike, deflect attack, retributive blow, etc. Let me see what you guys have to say. When he says thank you, looking good, probably worth a purchase. Sure. You don't have to take only my word for it, but there's other people who've done reactions to it. Although I think I'm the only one that's been consistent with it on these Tuesdays. So to just let people take a look at the book, find something in it, and then go off from there. The Yank King says, I was actually reading some of this stuff a while ago. I like that certain classes have some maneuvers built in, like the shield throwing fighter archetype. Yes, and there are now, mind you, listen, some of it pulled from pop culture? Yes. Are they? Yes. Absolutely. No, perfect. Paladin SAS or Paladin are, that sounds uh European SAS. Isn't that Special Forces or something? Anyway, Paladin says, "Hey DBJ, just wanted to pop in to say that I love your content. Sad I can't usually catch the show live, but the replays are great content for night shift work. Can't wait to listen to this tonight." Oh, thank you so much there, and I appreciate you saying something. A lot of I notice people listen in or catch it later because I do broadcast hella early here in the states, but I like to hear what people have to say, and you don't have to like it. You could, if someone has some criticisms or something like that, I appreciate that too. So, but yes, Paladin, I really thank you very much for the comment and the content. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and yeah, catch it later. Oh, all right. So under Mist and Shade, here we go. Diversion, fainting, and it's mental. All right. So under Mist and Shade, making the wrong move in a fight can be fatal, particularly when an opponent causes such a misstep. Warriors that rely on Mist and Shade maneuvers are confounding foes that play mental games amidst battle, fainting and leading their enemies into crucial mistakes they are all too ready to exploit. And uh, similar, but not quite like Mirror's Glint, like Mirror's Glint is more about reactions, whereas Mist and Shade is more deceptive, and such. And so you can absolutely positively make a fighter that is multi-skilled, like picking. I want to pick from this tradition. Oh, and a little bit from that tradition, and kind of like spread yourself out. You could be hyper focused on one or maybe only two traditions, and be hyper focused and what I love to think about for when it comes to like during character creation is steal from this book, The Adventurer's Guide, to build your world. So going back to plains runners and plains riders, there were people who live on these vast savannas. Maybe maybe their NPCs have access to one specific combat tradition that makes them like Dothraki, Game of Thrones Dothraki warriors that makes them so powerful on mounted back, maybe like elephants or camels or axe beaks or something like that, right? And maybe the player characters maybe learn from a culture that is very good at spear throwing or entrapping their enemies or knife fighting or axe throwing or something like that. So you could very much use these to build and pick and choose them to add to your NPCs as well. But uh, here under Mist and Shade, there's like pickpocket, armor lock, blinding blow stance. I kind of I like the idea of like pickpocket, where like I mean it is third degree. You kind of have to be pretty high up, but like yeah, you snatch something from your enemy, maybe grabbing that golden fluid potion of healing that's like dangling from the waist of an enemy or something, or even armor lock, where you can like grab your uh, right here, you swiftly adjust your enemy's armor so that they cannot move, cutting their straps or grabbing their breastplate and twisting it or something like that, making it difficult for them to use their armor. Or if you're especially in a world with armored mounted warriors, this might be a maneuver against someone in like plate mail armor or something like that. Here's another maneuver, and then I'll get back to what you guys have to say. Is rapid current maneuvers. Deals with fast strikes, mobility, and swiftness. Definitely a dex based tradition. Anyway, it is not always the hardest hits that win a fight. Sometimes striking first is far more important. Embracing rapid blows and agility, warriors of the rapid current tradition know how to use speed to its utmost to defeat a foe. And again, I don't know all of the maneuvers. So if you're thinking in your head, where's action surge? I honestly don't know. I've been reading and rereading through some of them, and I lose count. So that's why having, like, if you wanted to buy the cards and just having the three or four or five that you may know for your character, you're like fourth level. You've got like five maneuvers. Getting those cards or writing them down is might be the best bet instead of like paging through all of them all the time. So anyway, we have things here like eye slash, speed over strength, parrying counter, things like that. Rapid drink. As as casually as any seasoned alchemist, you can pluck the cork from a magical concoction and pour it down your throat or a companion's. You drink a potion or administer a potion to a creature within reach, and it is a bonus action. This was placed into A5E because the base rules for fifth edition state that it takes a full action to drink a potion. And a house rule in many games is that as a bonus action, you can drink a potion. But rules as written, fifth edition says it takes a full action, your entire action to drink a potion. This is a rule that allows you to spend two exertion to administer a potion to yourself. To an ally, or drink one yourself as a bonus action. So it has become a rule rather than a house rule. Some people have mentioned that A5E sounds like a thick book of house rules, which they're not wrong, but between surveys, playtesting, and a committee of individuals designing it and redesigning it, the answer would be yes, because technically all games are house rules, if you think about it, until they became publicized and play tested and things like that. So, here's another stance ability for Rapid Strike, first degree. You adopt a loose stance that gives you an extra bit of swiftness that can make all the difference in a fight or chase. For 1 point, your speed increases by 5 feet. Right. So you can't overlap stances. You're either in a stance or you're not. So you can only use one at a time, but they do give you something that extends your gives you some basic abilities. And there's things like rapid strike, disarming counter, flowing step stance, whirling strike, things like that. Mm-mm. Tsunami dash. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see which anime you think this reminds you of. Tsunami Dash, 3 points of exertion. It's a fifth degree rapid current action. Fifth degree, the highest degree combat maneuver. You need to have extra attack, and you sprint through your enemies, striking at everyone you pass. You take the dax. You take the dash action. During your turn, anytime you become adjacent to a creature, you can make a melee attack against it using a weapon that has the dual wielding or finesse properties. You cannot attack the same creature twice in a row in this manner or make more attacks than your proficiency bonus. I think a little Naruto run is warranted for that one. Let's see what you guys have to say. Let's see. The Ant King says rapid drink. Yeah. Dude, that seems like an almost drunken boxing thing. Hell's yeah. Yeah, of course it is, right? Without stating it that way, but yeah, definitely that. Oh man, Wayne Brock says martial magic. Wait, ooh, Tsunami Dash sounds like a spy name. It's funny. Oh man, Wayne says martial magic instant gesture with unarmed hand create dirt aimed at opponent's face, possibly temporarily blinding them. Popped into my head. Yeah, what is it? Mm-mm-mm. It's absolutely that way. Absolutely. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Let me go back. First Blood, Whirlwind Strike, Title Parry, Flowing Steps. Did you see that? Rapid Drink, Eye Slash. I thought that was in here. 176 of them. I don't even remember 176 spells, and I've been role playing for like shit, like 45 years now, something like that. 40 over 40 years. It's crazy. Oh, anyway, here we have Razor's Edge maneuvers. Razor's Edge. And you'll see there's a theme with with the various traditions. You'll go, oh, I know what that sounds like. Like you're like talking about the drunken fighting. Yeah, it's very much like that. Razor's Edge maneuvers: awareness, concentration, and discipline. This is very wisdom based. The most impressive strikes and superlative parries are not matters of luck or circumstance when made by a warrior utilizing the Razor's Edge. They are the fruits of keen awareness, concentration, and ironclad discipline. And so we got like different things: perceptive stance, first degree only costs 1 point. Your passive perception score increases by 3. In addition, you gain an expertise die on perception checks. Something simple. Dangerous strike, practice roll. Kind of cool here. Practice roll, second degree maneuver. Only costs you 1 point as a bonus action. With a series of low steps and somersaults, you expertly maneuver around opponents. Move 20 feet. This movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks from creatures you can see. Yeah. So it's, I mean, different maneuvers like that. And you can, mind you, because you're using this as a maneuver, like for example, in this specific one, you move 20 feet. It's not your movement. It is you are using a maneuver. You just happen to be able to move to 20 feet. So you might have 30 feet of movement and you're like, I'm going to move an extra 20 feet around my opponent, right? Something like that, and put you in a specific spot. And of course, with and using these in conjunction with the environment, things like that, kind of cool. Twist the blade, use the pain. Hey, kitty. Iron will, exploit footing, drive back, mind over body. This one's kind of cool. Focusing your thoughts inward allows you to rise above the pain of wounds inflicted upon your body. Until the start of your next turn, reduce any damage you take by 2. That's a very, there was damage reduction. I think it was at 3.3, 3.5 had that. Pathfinder has like damage reduction as well. Oops, here we go. Dashing Razor. Artwork. And we get into Sanguine Knot. Mike says the Tholish goblins are the plains horse culture. They use the Chicano or Chinese repeating crossbow. Ooh, cool. Lasso and a sword that blends the katana and dao. They also have their own wrestling style. That sounds awesome. I imagine like them jumping from like horse to horse or whatever, mounted culture. Yeah, gotta have some wrestling. Hey, Death Angel. Oh, Wayne says, no, didn't see that, but listening to you created that idea in my tiny mind. No, you're all right. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, it's Desiree was like 45 years got me beat by almost a decade. Role playing was introduced to me in school. Yeah, in school and creative dramatics it was called back in 77, something like that. 78. And I assume somewhere in here is pencil mastery. John Wick killed 3 men with a pencil. Mike Marin says, I've been very happy with the level of 5e books. Just wish I could play a game instead of running one to just to justify getting the level of adventurous guide. I hear you. Yeah. Death Angel says, so how does this compare to alternatives such as DCC and other OSR rules? Ooh, how does it compare? Wow. It definitely isn't OSR. This is not. Honestly, it is very much like oh, what's a good way to describe it? It is the equivalent of, well, advanced Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. I guess would that be considered second edition? Anyway, it's the equivalent of going from basic to advanced. So this is a lot more detail, and the level up design team wanted to make this a broad game rather than higher game. So what I mean by broad is there are a lot more options without power creep, because one one of the one of the design team's goals was to not make one option automatically better than another option. So there's a smoothing out of all the character classes and all the character options. The other thing is uh, what when you look at this in a vacuum is it's not just having an option to do a thing. It's when you pick that option, you're not doing something else, right? So there's very little stacking. that happens where you get power creep when one ability combined with another ability stacked onto another ability makes characters explode out. All of that has been smoothed out so that there are no specific combat maneuvers, spells, character classes, character features, um, that rise above the norm. The Herald, which is A5E's paladin, their smite ability isn't more powerful. It's actually been limited, but you have more options. So instead of just doing like radiant damage, you could do like fire or lightning or psychic damage and things like that. The Warlock's Eldritch Blast has been divided into four different things. You have an Eldritch Scythe, Eldritch Whip, Eldritch Ray. So you have different, and each one of those is different, but not more powerful. You won't see the classic builds in this. And unlike the OSR is like rules light, narrative heavy. This is little bit more rules intricate than, not complicated, just more options. Anyway, Sanguine Knot, you'll understand this one. There's a certain movie that kind of showed some of these. Anyway, Sanguine Knot is legion, teamwork, and trust. A battle fought alone is often a battle already lost, and practitioners of the Sanguine Knot tradition focus on the opportunities presented when an ally is nearby to help. While they may be weaker alone, these warriors are lethal in tandem, and the trust they have for their companions makes them truly valuable adventurers to keep nearby. Shield walls, anyone? 300 and anyone? Spartans? It's basically like fighting shoulder to shoulder, side by side. And so, yeah, double teaming, shoulder check, back to back. You offer you this these combat maneuvers work extremely well with like rogues and clerics and things like that, where you fight side by side with someone else. And if you want to do the classic phalanx, shield wall, siblings fighting side by side, this is kind of the one here. You got double tackle, hurl allies, look at me, double tackle. You and an Here we go. You and an ally tackle a foe together, and your combined strength forcing them to the ground. Choose an ally you can see. Your ally can use their reaction to move up to 20 feet to be adjacent to a creature you designate, which is kind of cool. It's like you pick someone else and give them movement to come close to a creature that you want to go after. And then it says, as long as you move at least 20 feet and both you and your ally are adjacent to the creature, it makes a strength saving throw, or is knocked prone. And alternatively, you and your ally may both choose to go prone to force the creature to fail its save. You cannot use this maneuver against creatures more than one size category larger than you or your ally. So basically, both you and an ally say, hey, tackle them. And both of you run after them, bam, tackle to the ground and do a little pile on the rabbit kind of thing. There's look at me, dual grapple, follow up topple, bodyguard. Yeah, bodyguard. Interpose yourself to take a hit from your for your ally. When an ally within your reach is hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to swap places with them and become the target of that attack, taking half as much damage as normal. And very much like if you're a barbarian, this works really well. Fighters, rangers, this works really well. Things like that. Mounted charge. Now here we have uh here we go, Mike. Spirited steed. Mounted, soldiering, and warfare. There are many warriors that fight on horseback, or an altogether different kind of creature, and master the tricks of battling in tandem with their mount to overcome slower, less mobile foes. The most common adherents to this tradition are soldiers. And I mean, well, see what else it says. Soldiers, sorry, typically born to noble castes with the resources to both keep steeds and pay for the tutelage of their use. And then if you guys remember anything from the past, we've got Cavaliers, things Lancer Strike, things like that, Mounted Charge, Riding Leap, et cetera, et cetera. And there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Mounted Warriors. Let's see. You guys have to say. Oh, the end kill. You're so funny. He killed one man with a freaking musket. Then he reloaded for 3 turns. Yeah. He killed 3 people with an improvised weapon, doing 1d4 damage. An improvised weapon? Yeah. Uh, Wayne's like mind over body. Oh, that's something I like. Could expand on that. Monk or General Marshal permanent ability. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, like I said, the martial classes have access to these. So if you play a monk, you can kind of like pick and choose things to make your monk different than other ones. Things like that. I think rogues have access to some of these martial maneuvers as well. Yeah, with the Yankee says these maneuvers would be also be good for a wrestling tag team. Oh man, hilarious! I love it. But hell's yeah, why not? Yeah, so much so that I want hot tag, where a beat up partner imbues a partner that they touch with strength for like 2 rounds. Yeah, form of a bucket of water, and I'll take the form of a kangaroo. Anyway, sorry, this is a Super Friends comment. Mike says, I've always wanted to do or M squared says, I've always wanted to do a Seven Samurai Magnificent Seven adventure where they train peasants into a phalanx, but just giving them pack taxes usually isn't enough to make them kill bandits. Yeah, 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 absolutely. Like, if you want to pick again with the world building, you want to pick and choose certain combat maneuvers that maybe the peasantry makes them, if they are able to create a phalanx or shield wall, maybe this just makes them that much tougher, right? Whereas in another culture, maybe they are a river culture or desert culture or jungle culture, they have no access to it. And player characters could learn from them and go, wow, that's a good idea. Didn't know that. Pencil whipping. You got silly. Yeah, Wayne. Death Angel says, sounds like something a band of gnomes riding on the backs of dire wolves would use. Hell yeah, why not? Yeah, and Wayne's like, yeah, damn right, Rose will have access to martial magic. She stole my +3 sword. Yeah, Rose is like, oh yeah, you'll see what's coming. Oh yeah, don't you worry. So, I understand that, like, much like underwater adventuring, mounted combat isn't very common because sometimes the mounted rules are get a little tricky. But if you wanted to do an above ground adventuring using lots of mounts, PCs maybe having access to them, especially in a world where everybody has access to mounts like axe beaks or riding lizards or griffins and so on and so forth, that you want to do that, this might spur your imagination to want to try something like this and have your players play characters that are mounted warriors and such, or at least make your mounted warrior culture in your world, make them badasses and use some of those maneuvers. um, okay, so we have tempered iron, and here we have tempered iron maneuvers: confidence, conviction, zealotry. This is definitely herald, paladin, religious type of thing. Anyway, to achieve victory over any opponent, a warrior must be confident, and those who utilize the techniques of tempered iron are certain of their every swing and step and swing, often zealous in their pursuit of a foe and motivated by a daunting drive to succeed no matter the cost. This is definitely like witch hunter territory as well. Also, dedicated individuals to a faction, a belief system, a government kind of thing. It kind of comes across that way. Star Wars. Oh, the Red Guard, whatever the name of the guards are, Crimson Guard, something. So anyway, imposing glare. Here we go with imposing glare, where you have charisma. So where you might want to make a charisma character or focused fighter of sorts. I'm picking fighter, but again, martial characters have access to these, so you may have access to them. A different type of martial character, like a ranger or something. Anyway, so 1 point first degree, a bonus action. Choose one hostile creature, and hostile creature you can see within 30 feet. If it can see you, it makes a charisma saving throw or is frightened of you until the end of your next turn. After you have used this maneuver against a creature, Until the end of combat, it has advantage on saving those to resist imposing glare. Basically, you look at him and like, back the hell off. I'm sorry. Purge magic is the number one. As soon as your senses seize upon the uttering, this is kind of a cool one. As soon as your senses seize upon the uttering of an incantation or a hand working the gestures of magic, your body reflexively reacts with violence. When a creature you can see within your reach casts a spell, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against it. And we all know that with this imposing with the other rules, it may force them to make a concentration check to cast that spell, right? It's like, oh, that's a wizard about to cast a spell, die, witch, bam, strike them, right? It's that kind of thing. So striding swing, stunning assault. I think one was called zealotry, break spell, devoted assault, defy magic. So this is like the witch hunter, mage hunter, spell shattering strike, branding steel. You permanently mark your foe with your sword. Burning embers of faith, etc., etc. And we here have tooth and claw maneuvers. Uh, it, definitely what druidic, shape changers, things like that. Anyway, animalistic, movement, and natural. There's a fundamental need to survive that all creatures tap into during a fight, an urge to endure that can be captured and focused to tremendous effect. Wielders of Tooth and Claw are animalistic in their attacks, moving around in combat and pouncing upon opponents' every weakness. Also, for those who may not be familiar, in World of Darkness, in the werewolf setting, there is a martial arts. Oh, I'm going to mispronounce it. Kalindo, which is a martial arts of specifically for werewolf shape changers. So you can like if you're grappled as a werewolf, you can like shrink back down to your human form, dive between someone's legs, and then grow back into your werewolf form. There's like maneuvers that allow you to like take advantage of your shape changing along with your attacks as well. I kind of think, to me, I look at it like this as well. Bloody roar, imperial striking, furious barrage, and we're almost at the end here. We have unending wheel maneuvers. Unending wheel. Mastery, patience, and training. There are many facets to combat: how one places their feet, an adroit grip upon a weapon's hilt, the angle of a shield arm. But achieving exceptional skill over specific weaponry can be an efficient means to victory. By patiently focusing your martial studies, you unlock secrets that general practitioners of combat never glean. And with dedicated training, you master their use. And I think this is the weapon specialist tradition. Throwing stance, repose, instant strike, preternatural strikes, wounding strike, disarming assault, flex strike, expert sidestep. This I think this is the master the longsword, master the katana one. Oh, any weapon stance. What you wield isn't what makes you a deadly combatant. You are the weapon. So I think we've got to the end here. Yep, we got to the end. And then let's see what you guys have to say. This is so funny. Death Angel says Praetorian Guard, talking about the zealotry, the defending. Yeah, the Praetorian Guard. Yes, that's what I meant. I couldn't remember what their name was. Sorry, that happens to be all the time live. Sorry about that, guys. But yes, it kind of reminds me of the yes, that tradition. I automatically forgot the name of the tradition. See, that's what happens when you get old. Um, the King says, so would a master of reflexively attacking spellcasters, could they be fooled into attacking a magician, someone pretending to cast magic? Ooh, yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, like could a charlatan who can't cast magic pretend to cast magic because they just mimic the language and maneuvers? Wow, I'd rule yes. If I were running a game and a player had that, I would rule yes. Although I would give them the opportunity to discover whether they realize that person is a charlatan or not, so they don't waste the points. Like I wouldn't force a PC to waste it. But if a PC jumped the gun and was like, they're in the bazaar about to cast a magic spell. I strike the witch down. Hey, that's you. You could have waited for me to finish my description, but whatever. Mike Marin says, on that subject, there was a debate in my DM circle about if werewolves, druids, shape changers can use monk martial arts skills, quote, because they still have hands. Lots of hot takes. Yeah, and mind you, again, like is that are you is this specific to your gaming style? Yes, no, you can decide whether you want to, like, does that make sense? If I'm a rabbit or a giant ape or a T-Rex, can I still use my martial arts and flying kick or something? Kind of weird, but I don't, the the human body moves in a certain way. I don't know if stubby T-Rex arms can do like rapid striking, but whatever. Uh, I don't know there, M squared. I don't know. I would have to debate it like you just mentioned. You talk about lots of hot takes. Yeah, I would I right even now I'm vacillating back and forth with that. Wayne says that last section makes this worth buying. The idea is it would fire up in your mind alone with golden creative material. Oh, thank you. I didn't know which part of that was. We are the idea you can steal channel, which I almost feel like that we need to change the name of the whole channel, but whatever. Death Angel says technically the Praetorian Guard is from the Roman Empire. They just adopted it for Star Wars. Oh yes, yes, yeah, and again, talking about world building, especially if you want to introduce this to your player characters. Where are we at? We're at spellcasting. You Dear, I should have quieted my phone. Um, but yeah, if you wanted to challenge your players, um, just steal one or two of these maneuvers, give them to some NPCs when they go to different portions of your world, and you know have the hilarity ensue. Right, like um, that I I would contend that there's a lot of things in here where the story element of just reading the maneuver makes you think of something. Like for example, here we have the wounded animal gambit. Um, it's like it's a fifth degree ability. Like playing dead, you surprise your foe with a sudden attack. Or like where's another one up here? Um, and that's under tooth and claw maneuvers. Um, Under tempered iron, you have like gaze of conviction. Tempered iron bonus action. You stare down a creature you can see within 30 feet. And if it can see you, it makes a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, the creature is compelled to attack you. On its turn, the creature moves towards you and makes as many attacks against you as it can. The effects of this maneuver end when you attack a different creature or the creature is unable to attack you. Right? And it's different things. I mean, a lot of these are situational. And one complaint, and I think it's legitimate. One complaint is some of the maneuvers may be a little bit too specific, but the responses from the surveys were, how do I explain this? Were like the art of puzzling to put your enemies into a position for the combat maneuver to work in and of itself was like a mini game, right? So how do I explain this? The complexity was a desired thing, not a detriment. So, like for example, some maneuvers require you and an ally to move towards an enemy, or like you are An enemy suffers a strike. Okay, now this maneuver happens. Or an enemy is knocked prone. Now this other maneuver you can use, right? And it may seem like, oh man, I can't use this maneuver except on a prone enemy. Well, what a great opportunity to knock someone prone, to do a thing, to get something else to happen. Let's see. Let me get to another piece of art before we get back into here. Mm-mm-mm. Piece of art, and let's see what you guys have to say. Death Angel says, if it can see you, so just throw your handy towel over your head, because if you can't see it, it surely can't see you. And a kid's thing, right? I'm under the blanket. I can't see you, so now you can't see me. Although, you know, the idea, and I still contend this is a much more common narratively, but almost never used, is a lot of the rules require either the PC or the enemy to see you or you see it. And dense jungles, smoke, fog, mist, steam, um, um, laundry, tapestries, pillars in an underground tunnel, things like that, where you can't see it and it can't see you, means that that can have a lot of different effects when it comes to combat and spell casting, that I think is underserved, and that has nothing to do with dark vision. The End King says that complexity sounds like the complexity of boxing. Yeah, knocking someone out hasn't changed. Human chins aren't different, aren't different than they were 100 years ago. But the technical footwork and game plan needed to put yourself in the position to hit that chin, that has evolved and changed and grown more and more complex. And um, you bring up an excellent point about war and combat. Is what happens is, it always started out with, like you said, one person hitting somebody else on the chin, and then somebody else going, oh, I've got a counter to that. And then the other person, like chess, right? The other person goes, oh, I've got a counter to the counter. And a lot of war and the machinery of war happened because they've always been counters to counters, right? What's a counter to a shield wall? Oh, we're going to get cavalry. What's what's as an example, I don't know whether that's true, but then what's a counter to cavalry? Oh, we're going to use long pikes and weapons. What's a counter to that? We're going to use, we're going to use archery or whatever. What's a counter to that? And it goes on and on and on. Yep. Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Yeah. You could thank Douglas Adams for that notion. Yep, with the towel. Hey, listen, if you're going to go in deep space, you got to have a towel. Yeah, if it can't see you, you can't see me. Is cat logic. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, the small white towel maneuver. Hilarious. Anyway, um, yeah, this is level up 5th edition. These are the combat maneuvers. These are available to the different martial classes. Matter of fact, let me. All right, bear with me here. I'm going to move very quickly. Bam. I'm going to go to some of the uh to the classes, and let's see if I can. Oops, let's go back up here. Classes, adventuring. Let's go to the. We got the fighter. Um, let's go to the rogue. Where are you, rogue? Rogue. All right, we'll go to the rogue. Creating a rogue. Let's see which martial maneuvers you have access to. Let's see. Combat maneuvers. Here we go for the rogue. Um, At second level, you gain the ability to use combat maneuvers. You gain proficiency in 2 combat traditions from the following list: Biting Zephyr, which is ranged attack; Mist and Shade, or Rapid Current. You learn 2 maneuvers of your choice from traditions you are proficient with. You gain an exertion pool, blah, 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 blah. Additionally, whenever you learn a new maneuver, you can choose one of the maneuvers you know and replace it with another maneuver of the same degree from a tradition you are proficient with. That is very common amongst the martial maneuver nomenclature, which means that like when you learn a new maneuver, you also have the opportunity to relearn something else, kind of like spell relearning spells. And the idea behind this, A, is choice, and B, maybe your mounted knight who has been your story element. You were a mounted knight, completely lance, working in the king's and queen's retinue or something like that. Maybe you were disgraced or blackmailed or um, um, com- falsely accused of a crime, escape with your other player characters. So now you're out adventuring. Maybe you learn to fight differently. You're no longer a lancer. You don't fight on mounted combat anymore. You've learned how to fight dirty, and so you can replace one maneuver with another maneuver during like when you gain a level, when you learn a new maneuver, or learn it from maybe that knight learned knife fighting or archery or grappling or something from a distant culture, and when they come back they have these new skills or something, and that's just an excuse for like, oh, how do I pick something else, right? Wayne says, great stuff, folks. I appreciate your wonderful creative minds. No, I thank you guys. Death Angel says, so overall, is A5E worth picking up? What about from a DM's perspective? um all right, so I'm biased because I worked on it, at, at least a tiny little portion of a small cog, big machine. So my word, my suggestion would be, if you really still want to continue playing fifth edition, I think this is a good replacement. Now, there's other clones out there that might be more in tune with what you're thinking about, like the Black Flag slash Tales of the Valiant. That's, I think it's already or might soon be in under Kickstarter. There's MCDM's Matt Colville's system. Critical Role's going to roll out their system. So I'm just um I'm offering an alternative. Also, I want to say that like from the DM's perspective, all of the math for the monsters has been redone. So challenging encounters by monsters against player characters, that math has been evened out. It doesn't do the it's not a leveling out sine wave. It is a straight line up, so that damage at CR2 is the same ratio as CR17, if that makes sense. So uh, Sly Flourish is extremely bullish about the Monstrous Menagerie, which gives you clues as to how to create monster encounters and how to balance the monster encounters and all of the fine details of the monsters. Sentient monsters that can talk have names that are in that book. There's lore. There are monster behaviors. There are pre-created monster encounters with the treasure involved in it, with some BFF creatures as well. There's also like, so I would say yes. Now it's expensive, right? So, three books, one book. Um, Mike says, I think it's worth picking up. It's better than Watsy's offerings, in my opinion. Yes. Yeah. Um, I will give this warning before we get out of here. I know I'm running late, guys. I will give this warning when it comes to, do I think it's worth it? Um, this game comes across, it does fifth edition in a different manner. And what I mean by a different manner is that um, it is this game system, like I said, it does the smoothing out, so it balances player character capabilities. If you've got players who like exploits, it's going to be very difficult to get those exploits. If you are a dungeon master, you're going to be inundated with choice. Players, as they gain levels, they can go back through their character and swap out certain abilities. Um, as we went through all the classes, when I went through all the classes, I think I did 2 classes a day for some of these past Tuesdays. When, like, for example, you're playing a Herald, which is our paladin, when they pick Smite, they have a choice in how their Smite works. If you're going to pick a Warlock, you have a difference in how your Eldritch ability works. And so you may have one day where you're like, oh, the Herald has a lay on hands kind of ability. I know what that is. And then they go up a level and they're like, wait, what? Your sword can catch on fire. When did that happen? So you're going to be inundated with that. Lastly, I will say that um, uh, two more things. Expertise dice. Uh, expertise die. The expertise die, the D4 that gets you get to add to a die roll, will come up a lot because players can find ways to get the expertise die, and it is encouraged for you as the narrator to offer expertise to players as like a gimme, like a one shot. Like, yeah, I'll give it to you. It's basically like something free you can hand out to your players that doesn't is not going to break the game. And multiple versions of expertise combined to get that die to go up, and it's available to all the character classes. So when they explore, when they encounter things, they can learn something, they may gain an expertise die, so be aware of that. And the last thing, the last thing that makes this a lethal system is the fatigue strife system. Used to be called exhaustion in 5th edition. Here it's called fatigue. There's a ton of ways to get fatigue. Strife is mental fatigue, and there's a lot of ways to get that too. If you've got players who don't want to deal with tracking supply and finding a haven to recover, and to recover from fatigue and strife, they're not going to like this system. The first level, 8th level, 17th level, uh, fatigue is still going to kill you. So it's the great equalizer. So that's the kind of thing. So yeah. Death Angel says I was thinking about CNC or Castles and Crusades or uh, all the name of them. Okay, sorry, let me go back. Death Angel says I was thinking about Castles and Crusades or Dungeon Crawl Classics or Pathfinder Second Edition, or, well, I keep changing my my opinions. I did jump in on the Shadow Dark Kickstarter, so did I. And now, see, as I get older, I like rules light systems. The fewer pages, the better. Maybe it's my attention span. Maybe it's the brain cells I'm shitting out every once in a while. But yes, um, so rules light. This isn't. It's not rules heavy or complicated. It's just more rules options. Different types of weaponry. There's helmets. There's different shields. That kind of thing. Different item materials manufacturer. So you can have a brass sword or a wooden spear or a adamantine spear or a silvered sword or things like that. Wayne says the ideas it could give you in to implement or spin off into ideas into your game, I'd say make it worth buying. I agree with you on that. I've had a couple from what little I've seen of this book. To me, that's the big thing. If you could spark my creativity, damn, I love it. And King says, let's put it this way: A5E won't give you any Pinkerton, so yeah, it's worth it. Oh shit! Ow! Ouch! Yeah, Death Angel says, I really have been respecting my TTRPG spending on non-WotC products. You know what? Here's the thing, though. Like, I appreciate third parties so much more now because I don't have to agree with how. Swipe is killing me this morning. You're fine. I try not to post up if I notice that there's some like misspellings and things. I try not to post up the comment because I know what you mean, but I'm not here to embarrass anybody or things like that because I do it all. Shit, I do it live, and that's coming out of my mouth, right? But yeah, I really have I've been respecting or focusing my TTRPG spending on non-WotC products. And so I need to find some more players now that I live in Tennessee. I'll be in Tennessee pretty soon. And as a matter of fact, I live in Central Ohio. We're not that far away. What, between 4 and 6 hours away? Maybe longer, depending on where you are in Tennessee and me in Ohio. But yeah, depends on longitudinal and latitudinal. But I'm trying to think of any other thing that is specific. Oh, exploration is a big thing in this. If you've got players who want to get to the adventure's front door and don't want to do the long haul, walking through the trenches, they're not going to like this system. But what I love about third parties systems, even if I don't agree with how they've created, is third party systems, even for D&D or whatever, fifth edition clones, whatever. They have a goal. Now you don't have to agree with the goal, but I love artistic agency. Like, hey, I plan on making it this way because of what I think it should be, and focusing on that specific design goal. When you have fewer people and they're not trying to please everyone. Dungeon Crawl Classics is hyper specific. We know it's got the funnel, it's got the 0.0 level thing, it's got the crazy dice, it's got the random tables for all the spells. If you don't like it, whatever, but if you do, it fulfills all of that. And that's why I like Shadow Dark, why I like Knave second edition Kickstarters that are coming out. I like the design mechanism. As a matter of fact, listening to the the AMAs and the design process for Shadow Dark, I've got more respect, because even though I may not agree with her design philosophy, I know where she's coming from, and I go, yeah, I can see that. I would like I could say, I can both go, I wouldn't do it that way, and then at the same time go, yeah, but I like it. Wayne says, it's wisdom over getting caught up by sparkly lights. Rules light makes faster, smoother play. Players turn done in seconds versus full minutes. Yeah. Also, here's another thing, too. And before we get out of here, you know what rules light systems do? They're bullshit detectors. Some people, bullshit detectors and asshole detectors. Some people want to bring a bunch of bullshit to games, and they hide behind the rules to engage and activate their bullshit. And rules light systems are easily, they easily find those problem people that you just roll your eyes at, that maybe you wouldn't notice 3 4 5 sessions down. An example, in rules light systems, if you're the kind of person that wants to fight every ruling by the dungeon master or game master is running the game, then you know what kind of person you're playing with, and you don't want to play with that person anymore. You see what I'm saying? There's other, or the person who's always looking for the exploit, and there is no exploit in a rules like game except to intimidate, overtalk, argue, then that means you're ruining the fun for everybody at the table. So they're good BS, filters. It says, well, if you come to East Tennessee, okay, Chattanooga or Knoxville area, let me know. I will be coming down into Gatlinburg in next weekend. Yep, coming on down. I mean, I know it's a big tourist area, but whatever. Death Angel says, for Shadow Dark, if nothing else, I can steal some of the good ideas from it. Here's I've seen this come up twice, and I'm impressed by it, and I don't know why it hasn't been used. Much like fifth edition came up with advantage disadvantage. Roll twice, take highest. Roll twice, get lowest. Shadow Dark and Mothership, I think, and I believe the Dive supplement to Mothership does a real world timer that has a game world effect. So in Shadow Dark, your torch runs out after an hour of gameplay. Doesn't matter how long or how short the players were performing their actions. It's, hey, guess what? You're suddenly your torch goes out. Hey, we've only got 3 torches left. Light another one. Yeah, Destiny Angel says, I like the torch timers and lack of dark vision. Yep. Why don't real world timers, why don't we use that? Like, hey, there's a random monster. You're down in a the dark reaches of the underworld or something like that. A random monster will come about every half hour in real world time. So guess what? That puts a pressure on the players to keep moving. What's another one? Your spell, your you ask your phone like, give me a 10-minute timer, and then you tell the spellcaster, yeah, your shielding spell lasts for 10 real world minutes. Right? So maybe it goes out in 3 minutes because they've been poking around the room, or maybe it lasts for 3 hours because they're on horseback riding across the countryside. But in 10 minutes of real world, like I know that sounds funky, but whatever. Yeah. Then he says the 620. Yes, the Yen King. I get it. Okay, guys, I got to get out of here. I've been given the hint. I've been pat on my bum and told to take my lunch, my brown bag lunch, and go off to work. Guys, you guys have a great one. I'm DBJ. Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. You make this a special place, which I really appreciate. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Um, uh, Thank you so much. Yeah. By the way, my favorite combat maneuver is the like subscribe technique. And comment. Boom. Desiree Angel says, just remember, in Gatlinburg, you're not paying for parking. You're doing it. Hell's yeah. Or you're doing it the right way. You're parking your 4x4 in someone's lawn before you get shot. Yeah. Yeah, got here late. Going to rewatch this later. Oh, you're all right. And MBG. I don't know who you are, but I'm glad you're here. Glad. Well, now that I know who you are, glad you'll be here. Whatever. Yeah. Peace out, y'all. Peace out. Have a great one, guys. We're going to continue our talks this week about OSR and like in and unintended consequences. I don't know what to describe it. We'll get on to other things. I am working on trying to add much shorter, more interesting content. So I want to ask this from you. Keep this in mind. Okay. Um, would you be interested in, because I want to do short content and extremely short content. Short content, 10 minutes or shorter. I was thinking about calling it a verbal component and just like basically do a read off, basically like, hey, blah blah blah, here's some interesting information, here's a different way of gaming, and then end it with some kind of questions like, hey, how do you use it? And then I want to do super short, which I was going to call it a random roll, where I'm just going to have a camera on some dice. I've got some really funky, cool, creative dice, and just randomly roll an encounter, and then basically have a bunch of these little like 30-second to 1 minute shorts of just like random dice, and just call it like random roll or random encounter or something like that. And like, oh, there's undead in the cave with this and blah blah blah, and then use that to extrapolate an interesting story from it, and then use that as a random, create a random video content where someone could even shuffle it and do like a 1D100 roll or something like that. Anyway, top of the head, something like that. Oh, thank you. That okay. I didn't know, but I try to come up with stuff. All right, got to get out of here, guys. Have a great one. I appreciate it. I love the love. Peace.